Jim Fish, last week Waste Management beat Wall Street estimates on the top and bottom lines. But before we talk about that, the other big news from your earnings report is that you're going to be elevated to president. You were formerly the CFO of the company. So what does that mean for Waste Management?
Well, I think, Greg, it's a kind of the board's responsibility to do succession planning, and they look at this as being, kind of a natural progression for me in that process. And they're also looking at whether I am able to kind of expand my breadth of responsibilities and do it well as they think about succession planning for the future.
All right, well, Waste Management has been expanding over the past few years, mostly through mid-size acquisitions. Can you talk about that, how that impacted your results last week?
We look to spend about $100 million a year in acquisitions. Over the last 3 years, we've spent about $500 million. It's really been kind of on an opportunistic basis. So we will look to continue to do acquisitions as we think about use of capital, and of course dividends and share repurchase factor in as well. But anything that looks priced right in our core, we'll look at it.
Can you talk about collections, because they were also up in the second quarter? How does economic growth affect Waste Management? If we grow faster, do we make more trash? Because growth was only about 1%, about 1.2% in terms of the GDP. So should you be worried by that?
I think this kind of slow growth economy is fine for us. Would we like to have 3.5%? Absolutely, but maybe the single biggest driver for us is housing starts. And I would tell you we're kind of in the middle between peak and trough. I mean, with peak being 2.2 million housing starts and trough being 700,000, we're at kind of a 1.2 to 1.3. There is a pretty direct correlation between housing starts and our business.
And your recycling volumes were down. So does that mean Americans are throwing their trash out more, or does it have more to do with commodity prices coming down or Chinese growth slowing? What's affecting your recycling volumes?
Probably China, affects it the most, particularly on the pricing side. China buys a lot of our commodities, and as the Chinese economy goes, so goes our pricing of commodities. A little bit of it has been that Americans have plateaued a bit on where they are in terms of recycling. It seems to have plateaued around 35% of the total amount of waste that we produce is recycled.
So we're not operating very well in our homes. That said, you are operating a little bit better down at Waste Management. Your margins have expanded and your expenses have come down. How have you brought that about?
Probably two things. One is kind of top line related, which is pricing. We've been the leader in the industry on pricing since David Steiner's been CEO, and continuing down that path is a certainty. And then the other, as you said, is operating cost. We've taken a more kind of technology-driven approach to operating costs. We've put computers in all of our trucks. We're now dynamically routing all of those trucks, which helps us with efficiencies, and that helps operating cost.
All right, so just to finalize, where do you see Waste Management going forward with regard to the rest of the year? What's your outlook?
We raised guidance recently on cash flow. We were, kind of 1.4 to 1.5. We raised it to 1.5 to 1.6, and we raised it to 1.6 to 1.7, and we raised EPS guidance a bit. So we have a pretty optimistic look for the back half of the year.
All right, you're not just talking trash. Thanks a lot, Jim Fish.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching The Street.